Hello everybody, it's Brian here in Toronto. Have you ever had one of those days where it seems like your brain has been disconnected from your vocal cords, or at least your mouth? Because that's the kind of day I'm having. I've been unable to say things in a normal manner, so we'll see how this goes. I've tried this a few times, and then, well, let's not get into that. Now, this is a contest entry for Jack, also known as the Vinyl Martini, who lives way out on the west coast of Canada. He is celebrating his third year in the vinyl community, which means we started at around the same time. My third year anniversary will be mid-January, so I guess we're contemporaries. One thing to note is that if you win this contest, you will not get a prize because Jack is doing it a little differently. I think he said he already made a donation to a local food bank in honor of this contest. So I think that's an excellent idea in this era of food insecurity. I will leave a link to Jack's channel, and you should consider joining this contest because it's pretty straightforward and very easy to do. So all you have to do is show some compilations. They could be greatest hits, they could be various artists. Now, I don't really have a very good compilations collection. I seem to have more on compact disc than I do on record, and I left out greatest hits. I'm just going to focus on various artist records. There's no limit or number of records you can mention or compact discs you can mention. So I've chosen 9 LPs for this contest. So let's start with this one. And I'd be curious to know if anyone recognizes it. If you do, then maybe you deserve a prize. This is the AA Records Compilation Volume 1 from 2006. AA Records, which is located in, right there. I hope you saw that address, if you're curious. AA Records stands for Aryan Asshole Records, believe it or not. And this is a compilation they put out, the first one. I think there was a volume 2. I'm not sure if anything happened after that. I don't even know if they're still around. There's a couple of weird things about this record. First is the style of the record, the genre. It is abstract, experimental, and most obviously noise. So there's a genre of noise. So most normal people are not going to enjoy this record. In fact, I'm not even sure I enjoy this record. It is certainly not something you would play during brunch or a dinner or even on a Sunday afternoon. I have yet to figure out when you're supposed to play it. It is really abrasive. That's the only word I can use to describe it. I bought it because I was curious about it, and it was really cheap. And I knew one of the bands on here called Wolf Eyes. Maybe you know them. But another thing that's weird about it is there's 13 tracks. 12 of them are untitled, so you get the band name, and then the track is untitled, except for this track called The Moon Landing, where all you get is the title of the track, but the band is untitled, if that makes any sense. All 13 of these tracks were mastered directly from lathes. In fact, they're showcasing the first 13 tracks they ever did, which are represented by these boxes, right? So it's a very unusual record, and certainly not one that people are going to enjoy. Here's the inner sleeve. Although from time to time, I will check it out. I have a few records in this genre, and they're interesting. Some are less abrasive than others, but it's a kind of an odd record. The next one is a record I was given by Mark, also known as Mad for Vinyl. And this translates, I believe, to 4 words. There's the hype sticker, which says 10 unreleased and exclusive tracks from mute artists, including Can, Liars, Moby, and Junip. I didn't know who Junip were. Vinyl and CD limited edition of 1000. Also on here is a track from Mick Harvey. Now, I have a record from Liars, so I'm familiar with them. And of course, I know Can and Moby and Mick Harvey. The rest were new to me. The CD that came with it has 1 additional track. But the rest of these artists I didn't know. But it's quite interesting. This is Record Store Day 2011, if I forgot to say that. And it is on this, I guess, orangey, yellowy orangey vinyl. Pretty cool, from Mute Records. Next is a sampler that I have seen dozens and dozens of times while record shopping. It's the Vertigo sampler from 1985. 2 LP set for the price of a 12-inch single. So it's Beggars Banquet 4AD, and Vertigo. Here's the track listing on the back, which you probably won't have time to digest unless you pause this, but I'll tell you a little bit about what's on here. Double record set, as I mentioned, black vinyl on this well-known label. So it's a collection of album tracks and also a few live tracks. So we have, I'm not going to read them all, but we have Be Near Me from ABC, a couple of big country tracks, including In a Big Country, which is a live recording from Austin. 2 Boomtown Rats songs. We have Kevin Rowland and Dexy's Midnight Runners. a live version of Love Over Gold from Dire Straits, John Isley, Mark Knopfler, 2 tracks, Rubber Rodeo, a world remix version of Mad World from Tears for Fears, Zara 1, Cocteau Twins, 2 color box tracks, This Mortal Coil, Spirit Walker from The Cult, Gene Loves Jezebel, The Icicle Works, 2 tracks from them, Love and Rockets, and Tones on Tail. So kind of an interesting collection. This is from 1985, so it kind of sums up the mid-80s in terms of what was happening in alternative and new wave music, so that's kind of cool. I wonder if MGK Boston has this. He should. I'm assuming he does. You never know. Now, here's one that's really totally beat up. This are two-tone. First of all, it has a punch-out. I guess it was remaindered. The corner is bent. It's in rough shape all around, and the back is really weird because it looks like someone stuck this to a wall. I don't know if you'll be able to see, but there's places where there used to be something sticky, and it's just the rough paper underneath there, on all 4 corners, and it looks like it had been stuck to a wall or something. Very, very weird. This has 5 bands on it. We have The Specials, Madness, Rico, The English Beat, and The Selector. So, Gangsters from The Special. We have Madness from Madness. On My Radio from The Selector. Tears of a Clown from The English Beat. A Message to You, Rudy from The Specials. Too Much Pressure from The Selector. Ranking Full Stop from The English Beat. Too Much Too Young from The Specials. The Selector. Stereotype from The Specials. Do Nothing from The Specials. Rico, he only gets 1 track. So does Madness, actually. Jungle Music, and The Specials, Ghost Town. So despite the fact that the album is the cover is in terrible shape, the actual record itself is not in bad shape, believe it or not. So that was a thrift shop find. $2, I guess. Here is a sampler from British Columbia, from Vancouver, Network Records. So more in Jack's neighborhood, called Food for Thought. Hey, that kind of ties in with the food bank thing there. It's Network Sound Sampler. Network Records was a very important, I don't know if they still exist, a record label in Canada. For me, anyway, they were the label that had people like Skinny Puppy, for example, which I really liked at the time and still do. And also bands I'm less really eager about, like Sarah McLachlan was on this label. This is the back. I'll tell you about what's on here. And then it's kind of a cool gatefold, which has these columns. So the information about the track, who's in the band, what album it comes from, and what's coming next from them, like their next release, which is kind of cool. So we have on here Canadian band The Grapes of Wrath, which I don't know how well known they are outside of Canada. Dole. We have The Water Walk, Pretty Green, The Tear Garden, Mauve or Moev, I can never know what the correct pronunciation is. Skinny Puppy, SPK, Chris and Cozy, Single Gun Theory, which some of you may know, I'm sure, and Severed Heads. And this is the record label here. Kind of dusty, as some records tend to get. So that is pretty cool. Now moving on, I have this compilation called Lost in the Stars, the music of Kurt Weill, that came out in 1980. When did this come out? 85. So this is a gold stamp promo stamp right here. This is actually a really interesting compilation because it collects together a number of musicians interpreting some Kurt Weill tracks. There's a listing and some information. So we have Steve Weisberg doing a song. We have Sting with Dominic Muldowney, The Ballad of Mac the Knife. We have the Fowler Brothers with Stannard Ridgway, also known as Stan Ridgway. Marianne Faithfull with Chris Spedding. Van Dyke Parks. Ralph Shook It with Richard Butler. And Bob Doro, Ellen Shipley, and John Peterson. We have the Armadillo String Quartet. John Zorn, really cool. And then Lou Reed, which is the reason I picked this up when I saw it in a thrift shop. I was convinced almost, and then I was like, oh, Lou Reed's on here. Even though I have the 12-inch single for that song, September song. Carla Bley and Phil Woods. Tom Waits. Dagmar Krause. Mark Bingham, Johnny Adams, and Aaron Neville. Todd Rundgren with Gary Window. Charlie Hayden and Sharon Freeman, and then Van Dyke Parks again. So a really interesting collection of music with a lot of extensive notes in here. I mean, there's a huge essay here, and this one, the label is kind of cool too. 2 different colored labels. So that is really excellent. Now, what's next? Oh, this is one I have mentioned before. It's called Intended Play. I guess that's a riff on Extended Play. Pay no more than $1.98 for this record. Weirdly, the price tag on here, believe it or not, was $1.99, and I took the label off. I should have left it on. So it looks like I paid more, but in fact, that's, I'm sure, means $1.98 American, which $1.99 Canadian is what, like $1.40 or something, I don't know. So this is from Matador Records and the True Panther Sounds. It just has a bunch of tracks from those places, like from those labels, like Kurt Weill, Lee Ronaldo, Stephen Malkmus and the Jigs, Esben and the Witch, etc. It's not bad. Simple label there from Matador. This one I have also mentioned in the past in a different video, the Enigma Variations #2. I never did find #1, but this is a really interesting compilation from this record label in Mississauga at the time. This came out in 1987. I guess they're just promoting their stable of artists. So a couple tracks from Mojo Nixon and Skid Roper, 2 tracks from the Dead Milkmen. We've got Agent Orange, Plan 9, Wire. For me, that's the best song on here, Ahead from The Ideal Copy. Game Theory, SSQ, etc. I won't read them all. And then inside, they give a bit of information about the artist. For example, Don Dixon produced REM, The Smithereens, Guadalcanal Diary, etc. So it gives you some information about them. And the labels are pretty boring white labels. And lastly, to finish things up, I picked this Folkways release called A Vision Shared, a tribute to Woody Guthrie and Leadbelly. And here's the inside of that. Lots of things to read. So this is really an interesting record because it has a number of really quite well-known musicians on it. So we have Sweet Honey in the Rock, Bob Dylan, John Mellencamp, Bruce Springsteen, U2, Little Richard with Fishbone, Arlo Guthrie. Side 2 has Willie Nelson, Emmylou Harris, Taj Mahal, Sweet Honey in the Rock again, Brian Wilson, another Bruce Springsteen track. He does Vigilante Man in this case. This is Your Land, rounded out with Pete Seeger with the Sweet Honey in the Rock, Doc Watson, and the Little Red Schoolhouse Chorus. And there's photos of them. They all look much younger. Springsteen certainly looks younger there. And this is another one I found in a thrift shop. There's a letter from Smithsonian there, and some credits here, and these well-known Columbia labels. So that is it. Not all of my compilations, but quite a good chunk. So I'd encourage you to take part in this. I'd like to see what you have in terms of compilations, and I will see you in the next video.